I guess first question is, what does information science mean to you?
Yeah, good question. So I think of what we do here in terms of information as being at the intersection of people and computing and technology and society. So really anything that has to do with those three aspects in some way, I would say falls under this umbrella of information. And it's a little bit different, I think, from information science, which is more of a discipline and a field, which I only feel like I'm sort of peripherally in because my work is more in the human computer interaction space. So I consider myself to be a HCI scholar, which a lot of times HCI happens within information schools. So that's sort of how I think about it.
Could you elaborate more on your part or your role in the field of information science?
Yeah, so I'm more on the end of social computing and human computer interaction, which is very related to information science. But I think information science, from the way I see it, has more to do with studying how people use information. So, for instance, maybe you would be really looking into how people are seeking information online. And I have done some research in that space. In HCI or social computing, we're more interested in thinking about how people are using technology, also thinking about how we might design technology for the future, or what have we learned from people's experiences that will inform how we will design technologies. But all of this is pretty confusing. And as I mentioned, I didn't even know what any of these fields were until I was probably going into my last year of undergrad. Because it's not the sort of thing they teach in high school, and a lot of colleges don't even really have information science. So we're really lucky that we do have UMSI here.
With your role in HCI, how does that field impact our lives on the daily?
Yeah, I think a lot because it's a very applied field. I can give one example that is from some of my recent work. I'm not a person who was like really excited about studying AI, and I was kind of annoyed that everyone started studying AI. I think there's so many other interesting things in the world. But then I was questioning myself as to why I was thinking that way. And I realized it was because in a lot of the research that I've been doing, which is mostly around marginalized populations and technology, I had noticed that people seemed very resistant to AI. So I decided to do a study where I could actually ask a large sample of people about how they were viewing AI, and we could see if there were differences between demographic groups or identity groups. And it turns out that there were differences there. So specifically, a lot of my work focuses on transgender populations and LGBTQ groups. And it turns out that actually transgender and non-binary people have much more negative views on AI than the broader population. And there were also results around people with disabilities feeling that way as well. So in that sense, we can say, okay, AI is becoming really pervasive in our society, and a lot of people are required to use it even when they may not want to. So for instance, in healthcare settings or sometimes in job applications and hiring processes. So if there's this whole group of people who are not really comfortable with that and would prefer not to use AI, I think that that really has an impact on how we should be thinking about building technology.
So AI has been growing even in the K-12 field, and I
Yeah.
know that personally from my classwork. And people are resistant to it, as you said. Um, do you know how to make people more, or how to like ease AI into society, like as someone in HCI, would you could you like elaborate on some ideas, or do you have any ideas on how people could be more comfortable with AI in their everyday life?
Yeah, I mean, I think that honestly, it should be just more about consent, because sometimes I'm sure you've had instances where you're using AI or interacting with AI and you never really consented to do that. Like, let's say, even in customer service settings, you're interacting with a chatbot, it turns out it's an AI, and you didn't even know that that was the case until you start interacting with it. And so I think there should be meaningful consent processes where it would say, do you want to interact with this AI chatbot, or would you prefer to talk with a person? And I think people should have that choice. And let's say if AI is the only choice, I think that's kind of unethical. I think that people should have the choice. And that's especially true in settings that are more high stakes, things like healthcare, where it may be very important to you that an actual doctor is driving the diagnosis rather than an AI system with the doctor just kind of glancing at it.
I mean, like having that face-to-face contact kind of important, actually
Yeah,
really important
yeah,
for a lot of people. And AI has made a lot of errors,
yeah.
even recently. But I know people are working on solving that. But I'm not. Will you ever be able to like trust an AI completely?
Probably not. I mean, but same with people,
That's true.
you can't really trust people completely either. So I think these are a lot of really important questions that people in our field and at UMSI, there's lots of people thinking about these important issues. And I think that the important thing is just to keep trying to understand how people feel about this over time, because people's feelings are going to change, but we have to always be doing research to check in and see, is what we're doing ethical? Is it what people want in terms of how they're interacting with technology and with AI systems and any emerging technology? We have to keep checking in with people. I've seen I went to this conference recently. It's basically about, thinking about technology in a more responsible way. And I noticed that there were so many studies where people were looking at existing systems, like looking at how ChatGPT or Claude or any of these other AIs have different biases that are happening. And people have documented this. There's lots of different studies showing all these different biases. But the thing is, they're studying that system at a moment in time, whenever it was that they did the study, which now would have been, months ago. And those systems change all the time. And luckily, people are finding biases and trying to fix them, and that's great and everything. But I don't know if so much of our research should be going towards those type of projects where it's really just studying something that is just going to be in the past and fixed and moved on. And we would have to check that over and over again. I think I want to see more about just seeing how people are feeling about these systems and what people's experiences are like. So that's, I guess, more of the HCI part, like the human part, which is really important to me, rather than just the computational systems part.
Okay, so actually, I was right about to go right into that.
Yeah.
So how does HCI, or if you could elaborate on information science, those fields, how are they set apart from your other typical career path?
Yeah. So it's interesting because we're kind of a newer discipline. Like if you think about something like sociology, that's been around for a very long time. HCI has only been around since the 1980s, and it sort of grew out of psychology and human factors and ergonomics and these different fields. And information science kind of came out of library science, which library science has been around for a long time, but really the shift to information science is a lot more recent. So these are kind of interdisciplinary, newer fields that are really examining things that matter to people. And different fields have different orientations towards people. So something like sociology or psychology, it's all about people. Something like computer science traditionally is not. It's more about the systems, the technical parts of it, or something like electrical engineering. For those of us who really care both about the technology and about the people, it's really nice to be in a field like this where that intersection is really important.
If you were to persuade prospective college students on which discipline to go into, could you give a pitch of why to enter either information science or HCI?
Sure. I mean, ultimately, I think it all comes down to curiosity. So I think if someone has curiosity about those elements that are at that intersection, like if they care about people and technology, then I would say this is a great place for them. But some people are just really interested in just the human questions, and some people are really just more excited about the technology aspects. So first I would get a sense of what that person is really passionate about. And then if it seems like they're interested in both, then I would say that this is a really great place for them, because so few things in life and in the world are really strictly technical or just strictly social. And so in terms of thinking about how you can really make an impact on the world, I think it does have to be at the combination of people and technology. And we don't know what's going to happen with the workforce. I think it's really hard because a lot of people went into computer science just thinking, okay, if I learn how to code, I'm going to be guaranteed a great career. And now we see that AI can do a lot of that. So that career path is really precarious. So it's really, if you're thinking about how to understand not just coding, but also the social implications of what kind of technology you're working on, I think that has a more secure career path than simply just studying computer science.
We can do a fun question.
Okay.
If you could add a college course, what would it be called? What would it entail?
Yeah, so I did get to teach at one point a PhD seminar that was called Gender, Sexuality, and Technology, which that was really fun because that's really my expertise is in that topic area. But I would love to teach something like that because I just put out a book called Trans Technologies, and a lot of times I meet people when I'm doing book events and they ask me what I teach. And they expect that I teach something related to trans technologies or related to, gender, sexuality, that type of stuff, and technology. But in reality, I don't. In reality, I mostly teach interaction design and stuff about social media or online communities, which is great and everything. I like teaching that stuff, but I really would love to teach something that draws more on my areas of expertise in my research.
I know you mentioned some research projects you've been involved in. Are there any more you'd like to talk about or just share?
Sure. Well, we had a really cool research project that unfortunately our National Science Foundation grant was terminated. And because this grant was focused on transgender issues, it was targeted in the first round of eliminations of NSF funding. So that was pretty disappointing. But before it was terminated, we were doing a really cool project where we were creating a face filter. So an augmented reality system, basically, that was specifically for trans people to be able to do things like explore gender. And the important part of it is that there have been many face filters. I'm sure you've seen these on Instagram, Snapchat, yeah. TikTok. And there are some that even do a gender swap, which is what they call it, gender swap, where they use algorithm to see what gender they think you are, and then they turn you into the opposite. And it ended up being very, very stereotypical. And it turns out that's not what people really wanted. So we did a lot of research to see what people actually wanted. And we tried to eliminate anything that was making assumptions about gender and masculinity and femininity. And instead, we just said, okay, you can do whatever you want with your jaw. You can do whatever you want with how you want your eyes to look, like different things like this. So they could see what types of changes might actually be possible with medical interventions, but then also things like makeup and just hairstyle and things like that. So it was a really human-centered approach where we first figured out what people in the community that we're working with actually wanted, and then put that together into this face filter app. Yeah, I guess the question, you mentioned that you are interested in going to business school. Are you thinking about having any interest in technology and things like that along with that business degree?
So I watch a lot of sports, and I know, I'm not sure if HCI could be involved in like sports analytics, but I know that sports analytics definitely is under the umbrella of information science and data analytics. And something I'd be really interested in would be like the biometric data for like football, because concussions and like other head-related injuries are a very pressing issue. So learning how to like mitigate those with new helmet technology, I'm not sure if it could fall under the sector of HCI, but that would be something really interesting for me personally.
Yeah, that's cool. That's such an important area too, especially like, because a lot of these people are young, like college age athletes who are just having injuries that we don't know what the long-term effect is going to be on them. So anything to help that, I think, would be really important.
Is there anything you wish you knew before going into college?
Oh,
just generally?
Going into college. I mean, so I've been thinking about this because I gave a talk recently on my career path, which was very long and winding. And, I was a non-traditional student, so I didn't start undergrad till I was 27. And so I think one thing that I want people to know is really that your career path might not be linear. It might not be just like this. It might be more like this, and that's fine. That's totally normal. And that happens, I think, to a lot of people. When you're young, you probably have interests, you have a sense of what you want to do, but it might not end up being what you're going to do forever. And that's okay. And so it would be good to, in undergrad, take some time to explore classes that are outside of what you think your career path is. Because if it turns out that, like in your case, if it turns out that business maybe is not where your passion ends up lying eventually, you want to have some experiences of other classes and other interests that might be where you would go in the future. So like for me, my undergrad degree has nothing to do with what I do now. My undergrad was in economics, and which I found really interesting at the time, and I learned a lot. And a lot of the research methods that I do, especially when I do quantitative work, I learned during that degree. But that's not what I ultimately wanted to do. And so when I was in undergrad, I started to realize that I was really interested in information visualization and like computing and things like that. So once I finished my required credits, I just took all these kind of fun classes. I did stuff on computational art and things like that, where I learned how to code interactive art technologies, which like that stuff was amazing. And that's not really what I'm doing now, but I learned how to code in a really fun way, and I got to explore lots of different interests, and that was really important for me. So I think a lot of students are really just focused on like, I'm going to get from point A to point B, and it's going to be much more fulfilling if you allow yourself to explore more.
What's the most rewarding part of your job?
I think that, so I'm a very curious person, and I think that that's why I never get bored in my work, because if I finish one study, then there's something else I'm curious about. It might be in an entirely different direction, but there's always something I'm curious about. And getting to, at this point, I feel like I really know what I'm doing with research, because it takes a long time. Even when I first started as a professor, there was still a lot I didn't know. But now I feel like I'm getting to the point where, at least with research methods, I know how to answer a question if I'm curious about something. And that's really cool, to be able to say, here's something that I want to know the answer to. Nobody in the world yet has answered that question, because I'll look at prior literature and see, and then I can just set out and go and answer that question. And that's really, really cool.
Is there anything you'd like to ask me?
Yeah. Where do you see yourself in, let's say, 5 or 6 years?
5 or 6
And
years.
give me 2 different versions.
5 or 6 years. Okay. So that's just after college, my undergrad. I mean, there's really 2 paths I've envisioned. One is where I got into Ross. I did those business and finance internships, had fun, but I'm going into a career in something business or finance related, and that's something I had my mind set on since I was really in middle school.
Yeah.
I decided that's the career path I want to go down. And I'm a very analytical person, so it made sense for me, and I enjoyed it too. But the other path, which is kind of like a dark horse, is going into like sports analytics. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's a hobby. It's not something that I've done in school.
Yeah.
It's just like something I do for fun on Sundays, watching football. If I could take that interest to the next level as an actual career, although I know I'd have fun in business and finance, but I could apply not more knowledge, but have like a different perspective when it comes to sports analytics, because that's not something that I've been formally educated on. It's just an interest I've had. But both are really exciting to me.
Yeah, I bet there might be some way you could even combine
Intertwine.
the 2 of them. Did you get interested in business because you said your parents are both doing
Yes.
that?
I've been exposed to that practically my whole life.
Yeah.
So I kind of set my mind on that and have just learned about it more over the years.
Yeah. That's
And
cool.
I know the fields could intertwine, which is really cool, because School of Information can teach me like analytical skills that I would need in a finance job, but going to business school could teach me something about sports and like running a team or something of that manner. So it's cool that all these are like interdisciplinary.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your knowledge to me and the audience as well. But yeah, it was great having you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.